Hello and welcome to Knitting Between Friends, episode 4. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Jillian. Today we are talking about our knitting intentions for 2025.
Welcome to the Knitting Between Friends podcast. We are long-term and now long-distance friends.
We stay connected by sharing our current whips, learning new techniques, and discussing future projects.
So if this sounds like something that piques your interest, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And this is actually a very special episode of the show because, as you can see, we are not long distance today. We are in the same place.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to be here together to kind of set the tone for 2025 and talk about what we hope to do and plan to do. Yes. Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think my primary knitting intention for 2025 is actually just to knit more, which I know is a pretty broad intention, which hopefully makes it easier to achieve. But in the last couple of years, I just feel like there's been a lot going on, as there kind of always is. And while I have been knitting regularly throughout that time, it's just maybe been less of a priority than I would like it to be. And so when I think about 2025 knitting, I want that to just take up more space in my life.
Yeah, I love that. I think I share that, and I'm really excited that just starting this podcast has already kind of made knitting a bigger priority for me, and it's been really fun. Yeah. So totally agree with that one.
Yeah, a little bit of extra accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of accountability, one of my intentions for the year is something that you've kind of helped me stay focused on. I took it into my head early last year, maybe even a little bit before that, to make a color work herringbone vest, a sweater vest. And there's a long story there. I saw one on this incredibly chic woman in the grocery store, and I just wanted to be her. And it felt like making her sweater was the place to start. Yeah. So this year I made the prototype of the base sweater. I couldn't find a knitting pattern that was exactly what I was looking for, but I found the right shape. It's actually a pattern from My Favorite Things. It's vest number 1. Okay. Very simple. It's knitted in a worsted yarn. Yeah. Top down, which is my preference. It's in the round most of the time in stockinette. So just a great kind of blank canvas, if you will, vest pattern.
Yeah. I feel like even the name vest number 1 just kind of lets you know this is going to be a good pattern to like adapt and make your herringbone vest pattern.
Just a good baseline. Absolutely. Yeah. It's available in sizes extra small to XXL. So nice range there. Yeah. Interesting thing about this one, it has a double folded neckline. Okay. And when I first was making that for the prototype, it felt like, is this really necessary? Yeah. And I love it. It's such a nice finish. It lays nicely. It feels nice. Yeah. So really like that. So we've got that done. Now the task is to work out how much yarn of each color. I'm going to do black and just slightly off white. Okay. I think for that herringbone. So need to kind of do some math on the yarn requirements, actually pick a yarn and keep that moving. I do want to get that done this year.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels like a good goal. And just to be clear here, you have knit a prototype in, what did you knit the prototype in?
Yes, thank you. Just a solid color. I used some worsted yarn that I had in my stash forever. It's kind of scratchy. It's not the most comfortable. Okay. It can be worn. Don't know if I will wear it. But yes, just solid in one color so far.
Okay. And so once you kind of got that settled and squared away into your liking, now you're going to add the herringbone element.
Yes, I just wanted to be sure that it was going to fit. Yeah. If I do all the work of herringbone, color work, vest, I want to actually wear it and get good use out of it.
Yeah, 100%. I love that for you. I love how that ongoing process is unfolding.
Thank you, and thank you for your encouragement along the way.
Girl, of course. Of course. Another one of my intentions for knitting in 2025 is to do some maybe a little bit more complicated projects. It's been kind of a while since I've done anything with cables. And I do enjoy that. There is something very satisfying and quite honestly kind of impressive about cables as well. And so one pattern that I believe it just came out in the fall is the Petite Knits Dagmar jacket. And that was one of those where as soon as I saw it, I was just like, oh, I have to knit this one. It's an all over cable. It's a cardigan that's actually written to have 10 inches of positive ease in the smaller sizes. And then kind of as the sizes increase, the ease decreases, which I think is a really nice kind of thoughtful feature. And 10 inches of positive ease, that's generous. That's generous. That's something I'll have to play with because that's a little bit more positive ease than I would typically like in a sweater.
Yeah.
But in the photos that are shown with the 10 inches of positive ease, I do think it looks really cute. So that's something I have to kind of think about with that. It is an Aran weight yarn with an 18 stitch gauge, and there is a range of 10 sizes. So
nice.
Again, a nice inclusive size range there. It's knit back and forth. You start by casting on at the back of the neck and then knit back and forth and kind of expanding in the cable chart pattern for the back. And knitting back and forth is typically not my preference, just because it is a little slower and you have to do more purling, which is maybe not somebody's favorite. But I will say for cabling, I think it makes things a lot smoother because then you can look at it and just have a better idea of which row you're on, if you're on the right side or the wrong side. And typically you're not really cabling on the purl side, although I think I did see in the notes for this one that it does require, I know for sure some wrong side increases. Not sure about some wrong side cabling as well, but look into that. And another feature that I really like is that it calls for toggles. And so the buttonholes are toggle holes instead of your typical buttonhole, which I just think is a nice feature. And so this is kind of where I'm hoping to start with cables this year. And then maybe we'll see kind of if that totally, if I get partway through this project and I'm like, I never want to knit another cable again, or if I'm feeling kind of ready to take on another one. So,
nice.
See.
I love that.
It also the Dagmar pattern also comes in a pullover. So if a cardigan kind of going back and forth isn't your thing, that might be something to look into as well. There's some options there.
That's nice. I like that they give you that versatility for how you prefer to knit it, but also what you wear the most. That's really nice.
For sure. I feel like Petite Knit does a really good job of kind of thinking through those kinds of details and having those offerings.
Great. Oh, I'm excited to see that. Do you have ideas on colors?
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to cable, as I'm wearing right now, I just always kind of like lean towards cream. I just feel like that's a really classic cable color. Yeah. And if you're going to do all the work of cabling, you want to make sure people can see it.
Let it be seen.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
See it clearly. And of course, with a cable sweater or anything that's cabled, when you're picking your yarn, you want to be thinking about yarn with high stitch definition. So that's something that I'll keep in mind as well. But yeah, so probably a cream yarn, probably with high stitch definition, but that's something I need to do a little bit more research on. She does have a recommended yarn in there that's looks really beautiful. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but maybe we could put that up on the screen. But I think for me, that's going to be too itchy. Too scratchy. Yeah. I tend to be very sensitive with that. And so that's kind of a balance there. But for folks who are potentially a little less sensitive than I am, you could just use the recommended yarn from her as well.
Excellent. Oh, I'm excited to see that. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, my second intention is actually something I need your help with. I have recently come to realize how little I document what I knit. Yeah. I don't keep any records. I have tried in the past to keep up with it in Ravelry, and I just don't get to it. I hardly ever even take a photo of a finished project. I don't know about everyone listening or you. I kind of finish a project and then I'm a little bit sick of it. I've looked at this for so long. I'm going to put it away and I don't want to see it.
Yeah. And maybe also there's like another project that you have waiting in the wings.
Absolutely.
That you do feel that energy.
Or have already started a little bit.
Yeah,
being me.
too.
Being me, I probably have done that.
Yeah.
So there's something I want to be intentional about this year. And of course the podcast kind of builds that in a little bit, but really looking forward to having better notes, having photos. And I know you do keep a knitting journal. So would love to hear kind of what process works well for you.
Yeah. So I want to preface this by saying this is a super, super bare bones knitting journal. So I just have, this is a notebook, one of the thin notebooks from Rifle Paper.
So cute.
I don't think they make this exact colorway anymore or this exact design, but I did find a similar packet. They come in packs of 3, so we can put the link in the show notes here. Like I said, it's very bare bones. I know that there are other options that are notebooks specific for makers and knitters. So it has maybe some like fill in the blank options. This is just a regular lined notebook. And I just write down, I try to write down the date when I start the project, how many skeins of yarn I purchased, the yarn, the size of the pattern that I'm making, and then when I finish it, as well as any notes around fit, like, you know, was a little too long, knit to the pattern, would have made this small. So, so that if I ever go back and re-knit that pattern, or if I'm ever delusionally thinking that that would be a good idea to go back and re-knit that pattern,
right?
I have those notes to refer to. It doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. So
I love that. What I love about that is that your approach is so accessible.
Yeah.
I am a person who struggles with a little decision paralysis, and I feel like I have to do it correctly the very first time and consistently. And so I would overcomplicate
it's a commitment.
Yes, it's a commitment. So I love that it's just a regular notebook and you're really just making notes for yourself about what you used and what you liked and what you might change. That it just feels like I can dip into that kind of at any time. And if I need to change my process as I go, that's fine. But really no barrier to getting started with doing that.
Yeah, you're not super locked into something.
Yep, exactly. So thank you. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, for sure. Hope it was helpful. Third intention for 2025 is I have been really just seeing a lot of vests that I like, both just kind of out in the world. I feel like just designers are doing a lot of vests right now. And then also in the last couple of years, there have been a lot of really cute vest knitting patterns that have come out as well. And one pattern that really caught my eye is collar number 1 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Technically, this is not a vest. And honestly, I think my grandma would have called this a dickie. But I think maybe we're just all calling it a collar now. I'm not sure if that's just to kind of make ourselves feel better or if this is maybe like the British word for it, or not sure. Not sure. Just saying this is maybe a vest, maybe a collar, maybe a dickie.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's a dickie. But it is very cute.
It is cute.
I really like it. It calls for a worsted weight and a lace weight yarn held together. So this is a bulky gauge. It's a 10-stitch gauge. There are only 2 sizes that this comes in. So it's a small, medium, like small/medium, and then I think it's a medium/large.
Okay.
And because it's not joined at the sides, which is what I think makes it not a classic, an actual vest, and more of a dickie, there's just fewer fit points, right? So it's probably just a little bit more fluid with sizing. I also think this would be something that would be fairly easy to scale up. If you wanted a slightly larger size, I think you could probably just add a couple of rows to the pattern on both sides and pretty much be okay. And then just kind of keep the center panel the same. So something to think about. It's knit back and forth, obviously, because it's not connected. So you're basically just knitting 2 panels and then connecting them and picking up stitches to do the collar part in the round. And the pattern says that it's in fisherman's rib. I'm pretty sure this is actually broken fisherman's rib or half fisherman's rib because it it doesn't look like a true fisherman's rib to me. So something to keep in mind there. And then, yeah, it's a little brioche-y. For folks who maybe haven't done that before, but I think I really like it. I'm obsessed with this pattern. And yeah, might also explore some other vests throughout the year as well, but this is for sure one that I want to focus on.
Okay. I love that like really thick actual collar on the dickie. It just looks so squishy, so warm. Just looks like it'd be really, really nice to wear.
Yes. And this feels to me like a piece that is unlike anything that I have in my wardrobe currently, but still feels very wearable. Which feels like it's kind of a small needle to thread, quite honestly. You know?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a statement and also pretty wearable.
Love that. Fun. And no sleeves. We love that.
No sleeves. Yes, no sleeves. It is knit back and forth. So you can't do except for the collar, which I believe is in the round. But yeah, no sleeves. So big bonus.
Yep, absolutely. Very cool. My next intention is to finish a long time whip. Very long time. We may have mentioned this in an earlier episode, but I noted when I was in my Ravelry doing a little cleanup that I bought a lot of patterns during the kind of lockdown period. It's a little aspirational on my part. One of those was the Boatyard Pullover, which I know is a sweater that you have made and recommended to me as kind of just a feel-good knit. It's pretty mindless when you get going. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, nice all over texture.
Yep, it's a nice moss stitch all over. And so I bought the pattern. It's actually in the book Texture by Hannah Fettig. Lovely book. That's available on Ravelry. I got the ebook version, which has been great since I've had it for 5 years. I go back and look at it routinely, even though I haven't actually started it yet. So have the pattern, have the yarn. Actually started swatching and could not get gauge. I don't know if you remember this.
Girl, I do remember this.
It was too small, and I increased needle size and every swatch was the exact same size.
Yeah.
It
just
never
like,
got bigger.
How does this happen?
It never got bigger. And I'm going to chalk that up to the pandemic. It was maybe just quite tense.
Yeah,
and
it was a weird time.
It was a weird time, and it clearly was expressed.
Unprecedented time.
Yes.
It was an unprecedented time.
Absolutely it was.
Yeah.
So eventually just put that out of sight because I could not deal with it. But would really like to have that sweater in my closet. And obviously I've got the yarn. It's just sitting there. So that's a big priority for me this year, to get that back out, figure out that gauge, and get that one done.
Yeah, I love that. And it also just feels good to like have that cleansing of like your backlog. Like just
it's hanging over my head a little bit.
Start fresh.
It is a really nice pattern. Again, haven't made it yet, but it looks great. It's a top-down raglan sleeve, so no seaming. It's going to be all in one, all in the round. We love that.
Yes.
It's a worsted weight. Jury's out on needle size. It calls for a 6 and an 8 US size, so we'll see where that boat lands for me.
Yeah, maybe you'll be doing size 10.
I mean, that might be necessary.
Yeah, whatever is required to get gauged.
That's right, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about to get back to that.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. It feels like that's been quite the journey.
Yeah, it has.
And perhaps in a way that feels like a little frustratingly unnecessary, right? Like the Boatyard Pullover feels like that's a fairly accessible pattern.
Yes.
Right? And it just to be foiled by something as
gauge.
Yeah, like gauge.
Yes.
That's frustrating.
I have knit for over 20 years, as you know.
Yeah, you know how to get gauge.
I know how to get gauge.
Girl, I hear you.
know how to knit a swatch.
Yeah.
This should not be so difficult.
Girl, I think you're just going to come back to it with some fresh energy.
Yep.
And it'll maybe just come together for you in a different way.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring that mindset to it.
Another one of my knitting intentions for 2025 is last year for the first time I knit a couple of summer tops. So I knit camisole number 10 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and the Moon Set Tea by Ozetta. And both of those were just very satisfying to me. It was nice to have something to work on during the warmer months that felt appropriate, right? I'm not holding kind of a heavy wool sweater in my lap.
Yeah.
Also, it just felt, I don't know. I think I've just been kind of missing the memo on this for the last couple of years. But when we were early knitters / like in high school, so girl, we're talking 2000s. We're talking the early 2000s, maybe even.
Yeah.
And summer knitting at that time was bad. At least I thought it was bad. Perhaps I was mistaken, but my distinct impression was this is not good and this is not for me. And so I've just kind of ignored that whole category.
Yeah.
And I don't know if perhaps I have matured and my tastes have matured, or if we're just producing much better summer knitting patterns than we used to.
Okay.
But I knit both of those tops last year in Knitting for All of Pure Silk, which is a fingering weight yarn. One of them, I held the 2 strands held double. The other one was just a single strand, and just they're so comfortable to wear. They feel good on the body. They're a fun knit. So that's something I want to continue in 2025. So a couple of patterns that I was looking at are Camisole number 3 by My Favorite Things, which may be beginning to sound like a trend for me. And Camisole number 3 is actually a brioche knitting pattern, which is perhaps not super expected for a summer knit. I wouldn't think, but I think it's so cute. And it kind of actually, as I'm looking at it, kind of has similar lines in the pattern to the collar number 1.
Oh.
So perhaps I just am drawn to that kind of motif. It calls for a sport weight yarn with a 17 stitch gauge. And they recommend a 2.5 US size needle. So this is small. Yeah. This is small.
Yeah, a little longer.
Another top that I was looking at is the Margot top by Georgia Fibers. Again, DK weight. This is a 21 stitch gauge, but again, they're calling for a 2.5 US size needle. Okay. So again, small. And the yarn that they suggest for the Margot top is a wool. And
for a summer knit.
Yeah, a DK weight wool. I don't know that I'm fully on board for that. So I might try to get gauge, maybe with the Knitting for All of Pure Silk and fingering, maybe hold 2 of those together and trying to get gauge with that. Or just kind of play around with some different options. Maybe a linen would be nice, or a cotton. Yeah. I just don't know that I want wool, particularly since I do run a little sensitive, my skin. And so like if it's hot or something and it's kind of, that doesn't seem like that's something that's going to work for me, but that is what is recommended.
Okay. Well, excited to see how those turn out.
Yes. I'm not committing to both of them.
Okay.
Just saying, in kind of the summer top category, these are 2 that have kind of piqued my interest.
Absolutely. Funny that you mentioned kind of the early aughts knitting. I was just thinking about that. What stands out to me from that time is the yarn that had like
fun
chunks.
Fur. Are you talking about fun fur?
Fun fur, but also the like chunks of almost like confetti. You know, like big squares. Yeah. Kind of like
what was that called?
We'll look it up. We'll look it up and we'll include it, because that had a chokehold on knitted fashion when we were in our
I'm having flashbacks. Now, girl, did you ever knit something with that confetti yarn, whatever it's called?
I have a vague recollection of having a skein, and my recollection is that it became a knotted, just unredeemable, just not good. Yeah, just a nest of confetti or whatever it was. So I don't recall any finished objects made from that. Okay. Or the fun fur. Did you have any fun fur?
Girl, I made a fun fur scarf.
Of course you did. Who didn't?
Yeah. Girl, you apparently.
No, apparently not. You're right. But most of us.
I think that was the first scarf I ever made. I think that was actually, I think I like did the dishcloth thing. You know, you kind of pay your dues with the dishcloth. Yeah. I think the fun fur scarf was my next was my next step. Yeah.
I seem to remember a scarf pattern that was actually the fun fur held together with the confetti. Did you ever see that?
Girl.
I think
no,
so.
Thankfully.
Yeah, I think so.
My fun fur scarf was probably like a worsted. Girl, I think it was like a Lions brand.
Yeah,
Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Lions brand?
Yeah.
Worsted that had, it was like a 2-ply kind of
Okay.
loosely woven or loose twist yarn, and then the fun fur.
Nice.
It was a good look.
Well, it was in.
It was in.
It was in.
It was
That's
in.
for sure.
I wonder if my mother still has that.
Oh, I hope so.
I don't know what I hope, but
Well, if she does, let's do a show and tell.
okay, I'll find out.
We'll dig that out.
Yeah.
Too funny. Too funny. Number 4 for me is incorporating an element of movement into my knitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a person who spends all day sitting
Yeah.
at a computer all day.
Yeah. All day.
All day. And when I get done with that, what I want to do is decompress with some knitting, which is another sitting task.
Yeah. Very sedentary.
Very sedentary.
Girl, this is what's called a sedentary lifestyle.
It sure sounds that way, doesn't it? It's a lot of sitting. And I, this past year or so, just listened to some podcasts and read some research on how really detrimental that is for your health.
The sedentary lifestyle.
To be so sedentary.
Yeah.
So I would love to find a way to incorporate something I really want to do, meaning knitting, with something I don't terribly want to do, but also really know that I need to do, which is some kind of exercise more consistently. So a couple ways to kind of pursue that. I do have a walking pad that I use and really do like, and I'm just wondering if I am coordinated enough to walk and knit at the same time. Can I combine those two things?
Now, girl, that feels like a little tricky to me. I feel like that would make me feel a little like nauseous.
Oh.
Now, girl, you also have an exercise bike, don't you?
I do have an exercise bike. I don't enjoy that as much as just walking.
Yeah.
But a little more stability there.
Yeah.
That may lend itself.
Your lap, you have a lap.
Yes, yes.
Right? Like, so whatever you're working on, you
can
kind
rest.
Of sit.
Yeah.
Sit in your lap.
Yeah. I see that being feasible. So something to play with here, especially in the next couple months. While it's still winter, still cold out, trying to get exercise in indoors.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll play with that a little bit. See if we can. I think they call that habit bundling.
Yeah.
Bundle that knitting with some movement.
Yeah.
See how that goes.
Yeah. Well, girl, please report back on that. I am very intrigued as to how that will go for you.
Don't do that.
Someone that I follow on Instagram, and I just cannot think of who. So if any of the viewers know, please comment and let me know. I feel like a long time ago, I saw this woman who had like a knitting. It wasn't a fanny pack. It was like a knitting bag that she could wear like a fanny pack. And so she would knit while she was hiking. And the project just sort of like rested
in her bag.
In the bag. That feels very challenging.
Yes.
To me, but it seemed to work for her.
Yeah.
So habit bundling, just some options.
Yeah. Love that. Very aspirational.
Yeah.
But love that idea.
Yeah. And she was, as I recall, she was hiking like hiking, like where there's like tree roots and rocks in the path.
Yes.
Not like on a paved concrete sidewalk. Somewhere.
Yes, for sure. All right.
I think my last knitting intention for 2025 is I would really like to knit a Christmas sweater this year. I don't have one. There's something about it that feels a little not excessive, but you know, the amount of time that you can wear it is perhaps just a little bit more limited.
Yep.
So something to keep in mind, but I do really want one. And one that has caught my eye is the Holly sweater by Pernille Larson for Knitting for Olive. It's just, I just think it's so lovely. It's this classic yoked pattern.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of color work, but the majority of the sweater is just straight stockinette.
Yeah.
And so I think that color work part could be tricky because there are rows where you're doing 3-stranded color work.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's a good
you
challenge.
just, have to be very, very present. And then you're making the baubles as well. So I think there would be some learnings there, for me at least. But so cute, I think. And it's a fingering and lace held together in a 21 stitch gauge. The pattern, obviously being a knitting for olive pattern, recommends knitting for olive merino and knitting for olive soft silk mohair held together. Have you ever knit with the knitting for olive merino?
I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either. I am always hesitant to purchase wool yarn that I haven't felt like in a store, just again because of my sensitive skin. And I haven't ever seen that in a store that I've been in person. But I did look online, and there's a store about an hour from me that carries it. So there's another intention for me this year. Go to Wool & Co.
Check that out.
See how that feels against my skin.
Love it.
And just see if that's an option, because it does come, as you know, knitting for olive yarn is just so lovely, and it comes in such a nice color range.
Yeah.
And just another note on the holly sweater here, it is extremely size inclusive. I didn't write down exactly how many sizes there are, but there are a fair number of them. So
I really like this pattern because it's certainly a holiday sweater, but it's not like a holiday sweater. It's a little bit refined,
sophisticated.
It's a little sophisticated for a holiday sweater. So. Very wearable. I think you could wear that throughout the winter. I really do. I don't know if you can find yourself.
Probably, you think so? In like January?
I think you could.
I feel like you definitely could. Like, I feel like November through December.
Okay.
That's
still 2 months.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Think about.
Absolutely. So, and perhaps, it is holly. Holly's winter.
Exactly.
Not necessarily just Christmas.
Exactly.
There you go. Perhaps it is more versatile than I was giving it credit for.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When would you be thinking about starting that to have that done for the holiday season?
What a good question. Well, and as we just discussed, it's not just the holiday season.
Right.
It would be like November.
Yep. Right.
Girl, depends on kind of how ambitious I'm feeling. I would say it would probably be something to start thinking about like in August. Okay. Girl, you know how I feel like just in my own rhythm of life, we get to August and it's like we turn a corner.
Year's over.
Yeah. Once you hit August, the end of the year is here. And so you have to start thinking about holiday related stuff in August. You just do. And I hate it just as much as the next person, but that is the world in which we live.
That's right.
And so that would probably be a good time to start thinking about it and maybe kind of thinking about the yarn and whatnot. And then, kind of wrapping up whatever you were knitting. I was knitting in August. I would say maybe starting in September.
Yeah.
But it all depends, of course, on how much space you have in your life for knitting.
That's right.
And how much time you want that to take.
Yeah. All right. So we'll check back with you around August.
Yeah. Put a pin in that. Put that in the calendar.
Put that on the calendar and see how that plan has come together.
Yeah. Well, and we would love to hear from our viewers as well about your intentions and knitting intentions for 2025. So please leave us a comment below. Let us know your thoughts and your feedback on our intentions, as well as any intentions that you may be setting for yourself.
Thank you for joining us for this special in-person Knitting Between Friends episode. It's been really great to spend this time with you. Like and subscribe for our next episode.
Yes. And if you subscribe, you'll just get the next episode delivered right to you. You don't have to come find us.
See you then.
Happy knitting.